Hey all, it's Carly. Welcome back to High Country Homesteading. Today we're taking a look around the garden because it's been abandoned for about 3 weeks. And so we're going to check on all the spots, see what we have going on. Some things are far past their prime and some things are just coming into their fullest potential. So we're going to take a look around and see what's happening here. We were on vacation having our last big end of summer blowout before school and activities and everything gets started. So we spent some much needed time away from home, but we're absolutely ready and back to be in our home, get back to the garden, the chickens, and all of that good stuff, and settle into the fall routine because we came from somewhere really hot, and as soon as we got back to the mountains, it was definitely full-fledged fall, breaking out the sweaters and everything. So it was nice that we had that time in the sun, but now it's fully fall time and we're checking all around the garden to see what kind of treasures we can find. Looking through all of the squash and the pumpkin patch feels like a big treasure hunt. You just follow the vines and see if there's anything attached to the end of them, and it's really exciting when you find one. I was honestly expecting when I got home to see a lot of rotten squash because that seems to have been the problem so far this year with the squash and the pumpkins. We've had a lot of rain this summer, a lot compared to last time we were gone. I'm very grateful that it did rain while we were gone because obviously I wasn't here to do any hand watering, but this garden definitely got a lot of rain. When I came home, it had rained that night and my little rain gauge was over 4.5 inches. So it's been getting quite a bit of rain while we were gone. So I'm glad I didn't have to water or worry about anything drying out, but rotting and overwatering is definitely an issue too. It never seems like you can have the best of both worlds. But we went around the garden today. This is the morning after that we got home from being away for a few weeks and went on the treasure hunt to find all of the different squash and pumpkins, see how many were still salvageable, how many were ripe, and if anything had rotted. Some of the spaghetti squash were looking like they were just about ready. I did the test to see how hard it was by trying to puncture it a little bit with my fingernail, and it seemed like a couple of them were good, so we're going to harvest those at the end of the day. Some of the squash plants had decided to grow outside the fence, and then they even were woven back in. But we also found that we have a pumpkin growing on the outside of the fence that the chickens haven't found yet. So I'm lucky about that, but it seems to have stayed hidden enough to where they hadn't detected it, nor any other animals. So I'm excited about that. This is what I was expecting to see. I was expecting to see a lot more pumpkins and squash look like this. Thankfully, it was just this one that looked this bad. So I'm going to toss that out and let the animals find it. But I was honestly very shocked and surprised to see that not as many looked like that. But something that did look pretty sad was my sunflower patch. The sunflowers were just coming into bloom, into their fullest potential when we left. And the same thing happened to us last year. We tend to take pretty late August vacations because growing up as a Florida native, I love going on the off season since it's so full of tourists all the time. It's just ingrained in my blood to do off season vacations. But this was honestly the last time that we were going to be able to do that because our kids are getting older and they're going to need to follow a school schedule soon. And this was pretty much the last time we were going to be able to do a late season summer vacation. So we took full advantage of it, but that also means missing the sunflowers' fullest potential. So when we got back, it was pretty much dead sunflowers everywhere. A couple still going strong, but not enough to make an impact. Here's our little in-ground carrot test center. This doesn't have any special amendments on it. It's just straight in the clay soil. And I like to take a test every now and again to see if these are even growing, but they're still just super short, stubby carrots. Gonna let them go as long as I possibly can, pretty much into the frost to see what happens with them, but still not doing that great at all. But we're still finding more treasures everywhere. When I am in the garden, I do like to make sure I find all of my squash and I rotate them just so they're not sitting in wetness in one spot for a long time. So I gently rotate them best I can, or at least just kind of jostle them to the side or put them in like a fresh patch of grass or leaves just so they have somewhere dry to be. So I'm constantly rotating. We just got finally a big pile of wood chips from a tree service who was finally in our area. We've been asking around for months. And so once we get this garden shaped back up, probably at the end of the season, we will mow everything down and finally put wood chips in all the walkways. And I know that will help next year with the rotting and the oversaturation of rain a ton. So I wish I could have gotten that done this year. We just didn't have the wood chips to do it, but now we have a big old pile of wood chips that were delivered while we were away, and we're going to be able to fix up the garden and all the pathways, and we won't have this huge overgrown look next year. As much as I've loved walking through all the weeds and having itchy legs and dew all the way up my boots, next year I'm going to really appreciate having the wood chips in the walkways, and I think the fruit and vegetables are going to enjoy that too. Checking on my broccoli bed, we planted this in the fall planting video, but man, they're getting riddled by bugs. I expected these to be bigger because they did so well last time I planted them earlier in April time, but they look like they're struggling a bit. They've gotten some leaves stripped, there's holes everywhere, so I think the bugs are getting to them pretty bad. The dahlias are still going strong. We're getting a couple at a time, some of them in full bloom, some of them definitely need to be deadheaded and are rotting away, but we were able to cut some down and make a nice bouquet out of them. So I will keep pruning this to make sure that more buds start opening, and hopefully we keep getting more dahlias until the frost. Now it's time for the part that I was dreading, and that's the tomato bed. This is all my basil that's gone to seed. I expected that to happen, but I knew I was dreading to see what my tomatoes look like. I know that I let a lot of really good tomatoes go to pass, and I'm sad that that had to happen. Before we left for vacation, I picked every single tomato that had even a little bit of red on it, but of course, a lot of really good ones, and especially some big ones I was looking forward to, ripened while we were gone and have since also rotted. So I took a good long look at the tomato bed and checked every single tomato to see which one was still nice and which one had been eaten away. So we do have some really good ones, but some with a ton of black spots on them or clearly had been eaten by bugs. We also have a ton of the foliage that is all completely black and dry and crispy, and some damage on a couple. You can see some disease setting in, some getting really spotty, but some of that foliage is just crumbling away. So did a really good detailed look through of every plant and every tomato to figure out which ones were still keepers and which ones were going to go to the chickens. I'm the saddest about these two. These were my biggest prize-winning tomatoes of the year, but of course they ripened while we were gone and they have lots of activity going on them. So these are going to be enjoyed by the chickens for sure. But there's still a lot of hope. Lots of green tomatoes still coming along. I'm very happy with the plants. They've gotten really tall, but I gave everything a really good trim. I harvested all the red tomatoes that I could, left the green ones on, and everything is nice and cleaned up now. And I separated everything into a few piles. So we have our damaged piles going to the chickens. They're gonna get a nice feast out of that. And then I still got a very nice full basket of tomatoes that I'm going to prep and put in the freezer, and we're going to turn that into some sauce down the line here soon. Next, we checked on the pepper bed. I have this plant growing in 2 of my beds, and I'm not exactly sure what that is. So if anybody knows what those little seed pods look like, let me know in the comments. But some of the pepper plants here have gone to seed like crazy, so I'm probably going to be pulling those out. But it was a really nice harvest I came back to in the pepper bed. It was exploding with peppers, mostly bell peppers and a ton of poblanos, and as well as banana peppers, which some of them have even turned red. So that was fun. Those red ones look awesome, and I know they develop a little bit of a different flavor. So it's cool to be able to try some that are red and some that are still green. But later on this day, we picked tons and tons of peppers, so that was super fun to come home to. I'm super proud of these tomatillo plants. When I first planted them, you'll know that I thought they were so puny and there's no way we were going to get anything out of it, but they have absolutely exploded. So we need to do a good tomatillo haul soon and made some salsa verde. I'm pretty excited for that. But the biggest thing happening in the garden while we were gone is these cosmos got out of control. They are so tall, they're flopping over into the aisle, and they need cleaned up real good. They have a lot of spent dead flowers on them that need to be chopped off, and they're just honestly super lengthy. I've loved the cosmos this year, but I definitely don't need to plant this much next year. So I've made a little note to pare down on the cosmos, even though they're so beautiful. But they definitely taken up a little bit too much space and are coming over to the aisles. So these are getting a good chop and groom, and we're going to clean them up. And I know they're going to keep producing for quite a while longer. These Old Mexico zinnias are beautiful, but they're so teeny tiny. So I think next year I want to dedicate more space to the bigger zinnia blooms. I haven't had as much luck with zinnias this year as I did last year. I feel like they're not as big and full as I imagined them to be, especially the Queen Lime zinnias that people love so much. I got a couple of those and they have not produced at all. And it took them a long time to bloom this year, so I'm not sure what happened there, but we'll definitely try again. But we're moving over to the Brussels sprouts and cabbage bed, and the same things here happening with the broccoli. They're just getting riddled with bugs. I know it's the same bug that's loving on the brassicas. So I'm gonna keep these here, see if they get any growth on them, but they've definitely had some bugs feasting on them while we were gone. It's time to finally take away the last 2 zucchini plants that were in this patch. I've planted peas and more green beans around here and taken out all of the other zucchini plants except for 2. So it was time that this one gets thrown over to the fence and the chickens can enjoy it. And that's it. That's what we came home to. We have a late summer, early fall garden going on. There's still lots of activity happening, but a lot of sad things have come to pass. But that's okay. That's what season we're in. We still got a super nice haul. This was the most fun that I've had, is getting this huge garden haul. This is my biggest one of the season yet. So that was really nice to come home to.